Hi guys, so today we're going to be analyzing the differences between the Natural movie and the Natural book. To start it off, here's a clip of the trailer for the movie so you get an idea of what it's all about.
Someday when people look at me, they'll say there goes Roy Hobbs, the best there ever was.
TriStar Pictures presents Robert Redford in The Natural, the story of a father and a son.
You got a gift, Roy, but it's not enough.
Of love.
He means the world to me.
And desire.
I'm not waiting for true love to come along, Roy.
A champion.
A Roy Hobbs comes along once, maybe twice in everybody's lifetime.
And his destiny.
With or without the records, they'll remember you.
Best there is now, and best there ever will be.
I wouldn't bet against me.
I already have.
Robert Redford. Robert Duvall. Glenn Close. Kim Basinger. Wilford Brimley. Barbara Hershey. Robert Prosky. And Richard Farnsworth as Red. The Natural.
Now that you've seen the trailer, we'll start from the beginning of the movie. The movie and the book start out very differently. The book starts out with Roy and his father-like figure, Sam Simpson, who's his agent, on a train on their way to the Chicago Cubs for Roy to try out for his first Major League Baseball team. The book, however, starts a little differently. It starts with images of Roy as a boy with his father, and also it opens up this love affair between Roy Hobbs and Iris. Now, in the movie, it shows that Iris and Roy knew each other as kids. Roy actually asked Iris to marry him before he got on the train the next day. But the book, that doesn't happen at all. The book just begins with the two on the train. It doesn't have all these flashbacks and images of the beginning. So right off the bat, the movie, although it's a great flick, it completely is changing the story around a little bit. So to continue on this tangent that the movie has taken in describing the differences in the relationship Iris and Roy share between the book and the movie, we'll start out with describing what happens in the book. In the book, Iris and Roy, they don't meet at all. They don't have this childhood love that the movie has created. What happens is Roy's in this slump, and previously in the book, this fortune teller had told him that he was supposed to be with this lady who has dark hair, and this dark-haired lady turns out to be Iris. So what happens is Roy's in a slump, and the Knights go out of town to play someone, and while Roy's at bat, this lady just stands up in the crowd because she believes in him. They're showing him confidence, and this new confidence ends Roy's slump. He hits a homer, and this lady turns out to be Iris, and they get together after the game. They go on some dates. They have a lot of sexual encounters, continue on this theme in the book of Roy's obsession with, intimacy and, sexual encounters. But what happens is Roy finds out that Iris is actually a grandma. She's a technical grandma. She doesn't look like a grandma, but because of this image, Roy can't put up with it. He's above that, So the book is continuing on this kind of large ego that Roy has that the movie doesn't really show at all. Well, it shows a little bit, and so what happens is Iris writes him a note, but Roy doesn't read it. He goes back to his hometown. He doesn't read it till the very end, and the note just says that they conceived a child, and Iris wants to start a new life with him and have kids, which is one of the things Roy has always wanted. And when he reads this note at the end, he decides to go be with her and all that. Now, that's what happens in the book. In the movie opens up with this new tangent of, them liking each other, being lovers at a young age, being separated for many, many years, and then reuniting that day when Roy got out of his slump. And the movie also doesn't reveal this intimate relationship between Iris and Roy to kind of make the relationship pure. So showing that that is the right relationship, but also this takes away from the sort of like tragic side of Roy that the book talks about and expresses a lot. And so what happens in the movie is while they were kids, they had conceived a child, and Roy has a kid with Iris that he doesn't know about. The kid is much older. It's not a new baby like the book. And Roy finds out at the end, actually at the game, what happens is Iris comes to the final game that Roy is going to play in the playoff, and Wonder Boy breaks. Wonder Boy is Roy's bat. He kind of like derives his power from it. So she writes a note saying that the kid is Roy's and gets it to the dugout to try to help Roy in the situation where his bat just broke. And he finds out that it is his kid, and then in the end they live happily ever after. But as you can see, the two things are very different. Also in the movie, Iris is supposed to have black hair, and she's supposed to be kind of larger than Memo, who is the other girl that Roy's in love with. And as you can see, she has blonde hair, and in the movie you can't really tell from these two pictures. This is Memo, but they kind of have the same type of figure, and in the movie their physical appearances are supposed to be very different, showing the two different sides of Roy. So now we'll go on and talk about Roy's relationship with Memo and how it's very different. So also, the book and the movie are very different in the relationship Roy shares with Memo. Memo is the Knights manager's niece, Pop Fisher, the manager, and she's bad luck. Pop tells Roy, she's bad luck, don't have anything to do with her. But Roy has this desire to be with Memo. He can't control his sexual attraction to her and all this. And his relationship with Memo ultimately leads to his demise in the end. Not death, just demise in his career with baseball. So when Roy meets Memo, she's dating Roy's sort of enemy, Bump Bailey, who already played for the Knights and he was leading the league in hits. But Bump kind of had this big ego. He didn't really care for anyone but himself. And in the book, this relationship continues for a while. You get to see Roy kind of how much the two hate each other and all this. And what happens is Bump actually dies in a baseball accident. And ever since he died, Roy had been trying to get Memo. But Roy had to almost become Bump to be able to have Memo. And also, once Bump died, Roy played his position. And the fans in around the field, they actually got Roy and Bump confused, just showing how much they didn't care about Roy and how society treats Roy, and the realities of society were represented through the crowd, and how in order for Roy to be with Memo, she was trying to almost turn him into Bump. So that's what happened in the book. But in the movie, this relationship doesn't really go on for a while. Roy gets on the Knights. It shows that Bump and Roy don't like each other, but he dies very quickly, and then Memo and Roy get together. Now, in the movie, it really starts painting Memo up as this horrible person who's just in it for the money and just trying to use Roy to get money, with the help of Gus, who is this gangster, and the judge who owns the Knights. Now, the judge is the owner of the Knights, and he's kind of supposed to represent Satan. He's running the program into the ground in order to get Pop Fisher. You just pull him up real quick, see who he is. In order to get Pop Fisher out of the game. And the movie has Memo working behind the scenes with Gus and with the judge in order to throw games, fix games, and it ultimately ends with her trying to get Roy to accept money to fix the playoff so that they can get this money from Gus and from the judge. And she claims she's going to use the money to spend a life with Roy, but I don't really know about that. However, in the book, she does hang out with Gus a lot, but it's not until the end that you see the three together when he turns in the money after the playoff game, because in the book he actually did accept the fix, but in the movie he did not. Roy did not. And which is a very big difference because, if you're accepting to fix a game, that really says something about your character. So of course, the movie the movie, as they were trying to paint Roy up as this big figure, they didn't want Roy, accepting the money. But in the book, he does accept the money, which is building on to the fact that, he's kind of very proud. He kind of caused his own demise. He has a big ego. And so what happens is Roy accepts the money in the book. This is in the book. He accepts the money, but during the game he decides, no, this isn't right, and he turns the money in the end. And when he turns the money, he sees the three characters together. And it doesn't necessarily mean in the book that, Memo the whole time didn't really love Roy and was working behind his back. Because that was never really said. She did have a weird, kind of affair with Gus. Which was kind of strange, but it never really said that the two were working together. But in the book, in the movie, it has actual scenes of the three scheming Roy behind their back, and this is very that paints two different pictres. It builds Roy up in the movie, but in the book, they're really breaking him down. And also, once again, the physical appearances of Memo are very different. She's supposed to have red hair. In the book, it keeps talking and differentiating between Iris and Memo, because it would say talk about the red hair of Memo while it would talk about the black hair of Iris. But in the movie, they both have the same color hair, so really that impact between the appearance is not there, which is kind of not good in my opinion. So now we're just going to conclude with talking about Roy and his character and the difference between his character in the movie and in the book. So Roy Hobbs, the story is about him and how he came to where he was. It's pretty consistent between the book and the movie, about how he got shot and he can no longer pitch and he has to play right field or left field. He's an outfielder. And so that's consistent, but really the whole character and how they build him up in the movie and the book is very different. The book, you don't honestly, when I read the book, I didn't really feel sorry for Roy, or I did because he was blind in his own pride and ego, and he was the cause of his own demise. So I did feel sorry for him that he didn't realize that, but I also did not feel sorry for him because he caused his own ending in his career. Obviously, he had no control over the lady shooting him, but his sexual desires did cause them to be in the room together. And throughout the whole book, he's just obsessed with sex. He keeps thinking about getting with Memo, and as soon as he meets Iris, of course, they have to be together. And it's kind of strange and it's kind of gross, and it really separates the reader from Roy. It's kind of painting this image of him where it's just something's wrong with him and ew. But you can also sympathize with him because he's constantly craving something, whether it's sexual desires or in the end of the book, he's hungry. He can't satisfy this hunger that he has. He continues to eat and eat and eat and eat, and he just can't satisfy himself. And so it's showing that he wants to be the best in the game, and he's never going to be able to be satisfied with who he is until he's with Iris at the end. Iris, he's satisfied with Iris because she provides him with a family, and he's just happy when he's around her, but Memo does not satisfy him. But this whole concept of being satisfied, especially through hunger, is not present in the movie at all. He's not constantly hungry, constantly eating in the movie. That's not included at all, and that's a big part of the book towards the end. Also, the movie kind of paints him up as this, valiant figure. It has sexual encounters between Memo and Roy, but the movie pins that on Memo. It has Memo working behind the scenes with Gus, the gangster, and the judge, the owner of the Knights, trying to get on Roy's good side so they can use him to get money. So the movie's saying, oh, that's just Memo, but the book is it's showing that Roy is just obsessed with her, and actually they only sleep together once in the book, maybe twice. What happens is Memo mistakes Roy for Bump, and they sleep together, which is kind of weird at the very beginning, but they don't sleep together again until the very end, and that's when Roy has to go to the hospital because he doesn't feel good, leading to the end of his career. So as a character, Roy is very different in the book and the movie. He's not this noble figure in the movie as he's shown in the movie but he's not as noble in the book as he is in the movie. He's not really noble at all in the book. And to build on this, at the very end, when they're trying to get Roy to fix the game, as I mentioned earlier, Roy does accept the money. He does accept the fix, and later changes his mind during the game. But the movie, you know, of course, they're not going to let that happen if they're trying to paint this image of him. He never accepts the money, and he gives it back to them right before the game. And money is a big part of the book. You know, in the book and the movie, and the concept of Roy. In the book, he's trying to get money. Earlier in the book, Roy goes to the judge to ask for a raise and all that, and he doesn't get it. However, in the movie, Roy just visits the judge to talk about other things, and the judge himself brings up the raise. So this money of like desire for money in the book is not present in the movie. Once again, building on to this noble character that's created in the movie that's very different than his character in the book. So that'll conclude this talk of comparing the movie and the book, and I highly suggest reading the book and watching the movie if you really want a full concept of what it's all about. Thank you.